Hi everyone, welcome. Today we're going to talk about emotional intelligence. It's a huge buzzword these days, but typically it means the capacity to aware of, control, and express our emotions judiciously. So they're saying that emotional intelligence is the way to both personal and professional success. Today I'm joined by Fiorella Callocchia, who is our leadership and HR consultant who speaks and teaches on the very subject of emotional intelligence. Welcome, Fiorella.
Thank you, Kristine.
And I'm sorry, say your last name again because I...
Callocchia.
Callocchia. Thank you.
I get it wrong too.
Oh, it's a beautiful name. Thank you
Thanks
so much for being here.
My pleasure.
So what is emotional intelligence? How would you define it?
Simply, I would say it's a set of skills that we can learn that it's going to help us be, as you said, more successful, both professionally and personally.
Okay, so very simple definition. Sounds good to me. I'd like a little bit of that too. So unpack the toolkit for us. What are these skills?
So basically what they are is skills around how we see ourselves, our level of self-confidence, how motivated and goal-directed we are, how we communicate with people, how we express, our beliefs, our thoughts, how we build relationships and maintain those relationships, how we make decisions and solve problems, and how we manage all the stressors that life throws at us on a day-to-day basis.
You know, two little words that mean so much. It's capturing a lot of different components there to our lives. How is this a key to success for us?
I think it is one of the most unharnessed areas of our toolkits.
Interesting.
Right? Well, because most people focus on being book smart. This is about a different kind of smart. This is about how are you smart about yourself and how do you use emotions to guide and navigate your decisions and your self-confidence and working with other people. And that's critical, right? Because there are a lot of smart people out there, but there aren't a lot of people that are using emotional intelligence skills in order to propel and accelerate their success even further. So it'll give you a competitive advantage, and it's been proven as well.
So what's an example of when emotional intelligence is being put into play?
In terms of at work?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so let me give you an example. You're in a very heated meeting, and someone who has high emotional intelligence, they can maintain their composure.
Okay, yeah.
Right? They can keep their stuff together, as
Sounds
we
like
say.
a good skill set.
It's an excellent skill set. Do you want to work for a leader who can't hold it together? Or is
Absolutely
unpredictable?
not. Yeah,
Absolutely
exactly.
not. Right? So that's an example. Someone who's collaborative, right? Willing to share their information, willing to share knowledge, as opposed to hold on to it and, because they're worried for job security.
Yep.
Someone who's confident.
Yeah.
Right? Someone who's willing to take a risk, try something different, try something innovative, because they believe in themselves and they have self-respect.
So by calling it a skill set, that generally means it's something that you can get better skilled at. How would you go about either defining, what your level is or, where you could improve and then how to improve that? Okay. And I know you talk a lot on the subject and teach on the subject. So
right. So
a mini lesson right now.
So right now, the one of the biggest breakthroughs that we can actually assess it through a tool.
Oh, okay.
Right? The Emotional Intelligence 2.0. There are also various online complementary tools that you can use. So you can get a baseline measurement. But also one of the simple ways is just to pay attention how people respond to you, how they engage with you, right? And how, how you respond to them rather than react. So that's just a very, very small thing. Right. But it can be learned. Just like we develop bad habits, we can unlearn bad habits and develop new productive habits.
And having, like you said, kind of good self-awareness to kind of pick up.
To me, that's the beginning of everything.
Yeah.
Great leadership, right? Unless you're self-aware, then you won't be able to put together your strengths, your weaknesses, or areas of development, and then put a plan in place to address those.
So if we're just getting started here, what's in our EI toolkit?
In terms of the skills, I'm going to walk you through them, and I'm going to try and relate them to workplace skills, right? Because people really need to know that and how they can harness their resumes more effectively, and also for internal jobs, or if you're an aspiring leader and you want to be part of what we call the hypo pool, high potential pool, these are some things you should be aware of. We look for confidence, right? We're grounded in reality. We look for individuals that are completely committed to self-improvement, willing to admit they made a mistake, they have humility, learn from it, move on. We're looking for individuals who can effectively identify the emotion that they're feeling. We're capable of hundreds of emotions, but people tend to default to the same ones. I feel bad, I feel sad, I feel glad, right? The more accurately you can identify the emotion, the more effectively you can communicate, and then people can respond.
That's really interesting, and just a quick exercise you can do throughout the day, like try to pinpoint the exact emotion that you're feeling.
Take a time out. You can't do it in the midst of all these things happening around you, and only 1/3 of people can do that. So if you learn how to do it better,
Interesting.
you're already in the top echelon there.
There we go.
Exactly. Also learning how to communicate effectively.
Yes.
Effectively. Okay, assertively, not aggressively. Right, where there's a big difference, which also contributes to a poison work environment. So people know about that, exactly. Someone who has independent thinking, self-directed, self-managed, right, that's the term that we use. Teamwork and collaboration. And one of the underutilized emotional intelligence skills, the most underutilized, is empathy. Try and understand where somebody else is coming from. Try to understand what they're feeling.
Kind of
exactly. Or at least try and understand their point of view.
Yep.
Right? Because everyone has a different lens that can offer you an opportunity to learn. And then are you building relationships that are reciprocal? So in the workplace, we call it building business relationships.
Yes.
Right? Can you build them, maintain them, foster them, grow them? Then we also look at decision making. Can you make decisions that are grounded in fact, but using the right emotions? And what that means is you shouldn't, decide to hire or fire somebody when you're angry.
Right. I feel like I should be writing everything that you just said down. They're all like.
Well, just watch the show.
So yeah, exactly. I have to rewatch it and take some notes and measure myself and kind of see what I think.
Exactly.
Two things you said earlier. You talked about a resume. How can we infuse this into our resume?
Okay, so that's a great question. My long-term dream is that we can actually attach your emotional intelligence scores to the resume, but that's never going to happen. So
people will be cheating.
Absolutely. So making references to and showing evidence of continuous self-development and continuous learning, that's probably the number one thing that we look at. The kinds of teams that you've worked on.
Okay.
Like everybody says, oh, I'm a team player and I can work independently and I'm a team player. But tell me.
So to demonstrate that on the resume, be very specific. Any example of?
What health and safety committees?
Okay.
Did you lead it? Did you chair it? Were you a member? How about employee experience committee? Right. Any kind of committee. Risk management committee. So I'd want to know the teams you were on, the role you had, and what was the impact that you had there as well. Your decision making. Can you use sound judgment? Can you do a good situational assessment? In other words, make decisions based on reality, not the way you like things to be, but how things really are.
Interesting.
Right? And can you manage stress? Right? And like we all talk about multitasking. I don't believe in multitasking.
Yep.
I believe in monotasking because that's one of my triggers. Right?
Okay.
Is understanding what stresses you out and then developing productive strategies around how you can manage those stressors.
And identifying what it is helps you solve for it, right?
Exactly. Oh, and change resilience. Sorry.
That's another great one.
That's the really big one out there right now.
Yeah.
Can you manage change? Can you transition through change? Can you lead change, especially for leaders?
Yeah.
Right? If they can't lead their teams through change and organizational transformation, that's a big issue.
And we're in a massive change environment, rapidly changing. There's always been change, but now it's just happening much quicker. So, what about high performance? What you sort of mentioned, those with hypo,
Hypo, yes, that's the term. That's a term behind closed doors.
Okay,
so we're always
it's an
looking,
HR term.
Exactly.
Okay, insider tip.
Here's a big insider tip. We always do talent assessments of individuals, and we look for high potential and what people that we can groom into leadership roles. And so there is one EI scale, emotional intelligence scale, that is the telltale sign that predicts future performance in those leadership roles. Yes, and the scale is self-actualization. Sounds fancy schmancy, but really what it means is that the individual is committed, has the skill to continuously learn. They learn from their mistakes. They don't dwell on them. They reflect, right? And then ask themselves, what can I do differently? And how can I harness that lesson to be better? Okay, so that's a key skill that so if you're committed to continuous learning, continuous self-development, that is the key thing that we look for above everything else.
So it's not ruminating and like going over an issue. It's sort of,
And being self-deprecating.
Yes.
And hard on yourself. Where people tend to dwell on it, remember it, learn from it, move on, and admit when you've made a mistake.
Awesome, great tip. So we will be right back. Please join us. We'll be with the panel. Welcome back, everyone. We're joined by two more professionals. We have Jessica Wooder, a director in healthcare management, and Josie Cassano Rizzuti, a communications consultant. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
It's my pleasure to join you, yes.
So we're talking about emotional intelligence, and we're just pre-chatting about how this comes into play at work. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Jess, as I always do. What's in a situation that comes up for you?
Well, I think this is such an important topic, especially, in my day-to-day work as a manager. I think for me, having a high emotional intelligence is important when you're trying to build and maintain relationships.
Yep.
So it's not something I typically think about someone's emotional intelligence until there is a conflict. And then, if there's a difficult conversation or a tumultuous situation that bubbles up, how somebody reacts to that, or even how you react to that, can say a lot about you. So, some people can be quick to have a knee-jerk reaction, an overreaction, and respond aggressively. And then you could think in your head, like, this person's freaking out, and then that sticks with you. You remember that. On the other hand, I've worked with people who handle conflict gracefully, with patience, and those are people I try to take cues from. I try to develop it every single day because, unfortunately, conflict is something I face on a day-to-day basis. So when someone handles a situation poorly, or when it's deemed inappropriate by me, or I think they've handled it poorly, that can damage a relationship and break a little bit of that trust.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I've definitely had that experience at work where either I'm on the receiving end or I'm pushing the message out where I want to react quickly and probably very strongly and emotionally to a situation that is unjust, or whatever the thing is. But if you do that, you have to think about how then your message will be received, because will your intention be resolved if you do that knee-jerk reaction? And I'll also say I talk to Jessica a lot when I want to respond on things, because I need that checkpoint to slow me down and stop me and give me some time to react more appropriately. And Fiorella, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, but
I do. Keep in mind that no one can make you feel anything that you don't consent to the feeling.
That's
right? So obviously, if you react instead of responding, they've hit a button. This is why having self-awareness in terms of what your buttons are, and knowing and being able to adapt and modify will help you a lot in those kinds of tense situations. Because the person who can maintain composure and still think clearly is a person who has control of the situation.
It's such an important skill set, especially to get with what you want. And if I can just share, you're allowed to take time to respond. I don't know about anybody else, but sometimes I feel like you're operating at such a quick pace and you want to get projects moving along, and then you get this email or this phone call that derails a project or whatever. So you want to act quickly and get a response out fast to keep the project going, but then it might be an emotionally charged response or not a very calm. I want people to know, because I think I need a reminder for myself, you have time. You can take an hour, you can take a day. In most situations, you can walk away.
You can walk away. There's nothing wrong
go
with
for a little
taking
walk.
some time and then collecting your thoughts. Even writing things down helps. You can write a few points down and then go back, and you're dealing with it in a composed, collected way.
That's any other tips on how you deal with that when you need
want
to
be effective,
calm down?
Right?
Yeah.
Keep in mind what the end game here is. Conflict can be your friend.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes that person may or may not be aware of how they're coming across.
Yeah.
Right? It could be an opportunity. So let's maybe restate the ground rules for the conversation.
Right.
Let's renegotiate how we're going to talk to one another, how we're going to conduct this meeting, and or bring the company's values into it.
Well, and to your point too, sometimes there's other ideas that are coming at you that you didn't think of, and once you stop and take a beat and then revisit, it's actually, wait, I could work with that, or this isn't all negative. So it's just allowing yourself that time.
Yes.
Something else I do is I might draft a response and then ask someone to read it first, if it's not confidential. But that's another way I try to slow myself down. I don't know if anybody else has this issue, but...
Well, I would even go further to say, if maybe don't respond over email, because you lose a lot of those visual cues, the body language, facial expressions, and it might actually add flame to the fire. Sometimes it's better to just set up a meeting and just, talk face to face.
True, or call.
Yes, I'm going to
go
agree with that.
Phone, remember that? Pop by the office, things that we forget that we can do.
Keep in mind, not everyone's a skilled writer.
Yep.
And so what goes on in their head rarely translates well out of their mouth, let alone through their hands and their fingers on a keyboard.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of the message is lost, and it can also be a detriment in that. I have done sexual harassment investigations, and emails can be quite damaging and damning.
Right.
Right? When people are using capital letters, bold, underlined. So there's a whole etiquette there that needs to be emotionally intelligent as well. But let's not substitute technology for the face-to-face and the relationship side.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? To your point, let's talk to people.
And emails can also be forwarded on and on and on. So you want to be careful when it's a conflict or
Always
a
professional.
difficult conversation.
Always
professional.
Might not be the best.
No.
The best way to communicate. So just a reminder. You have other options.
Yes.
You can call, you can go in person, you can set a meeting, but you have some time that may help with controlling and being a master of your emotional intelligence. And we were also talking real quick about just that word, emotional intelligence, how it kind of gets a bad rap.
Well, I mean, when I tell people that I teach emotional intelligence, they're like, well, how many boxes of Kleenexes do you have? I go, it has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, they
it
just
has
assume it's
absolutely nothing to do
emotional.
with that. And let's not give emotions a bad reputation. I mean, they're there for a reason. They're there to guide us and navigate us, right? If you really think about it, like it spun my world around 15 years ago when I came across this concept, and I was in HR, like for many years before that, without giving the exact number, and it helped change my whole perception of anxiety.
Oh.
I'm willing to admit I had things that gave me true anxiety, and by learning more about emotional intelligence and building up my skills, I realized it's net neutral. It's just some feedback. It's data. It's information, right, that I can use. And so I asked myself, why am I feeling anxious? You know, what is this trying to tell me? Do I need to prepare better? Do I need to learn more? Do I need to do something differently? And so all emotions have a root cause. All emotions are useful, right? And if we stop and pay attention to what it's trying to teach us and what it's trying to tell us. And it might be a call to action in some cases as well. So it's a different lens on it.
Yeah, that's something that's really interesting to think about. And I'm going to give a kind of a funny example, a quote from, I think it was like Santa Claus 2 or 3. But,
I love that, those movies.
Yeah, and like, you know, the workshop's all a mess and everything's going awry and crazy. And Santa says, you know, problems at work are challenges, problems at home are problems. So, you know, when things are going awry at work, to, you know, try to manage some of that anxiety, because I'm with you, I get that too. And I really take it home sometimes when I shouldn't. I should look at it as challenges to be solved, as opposed to like, it's a reflection of me as a person and like my life. And, you know, sometimes I think I can over attribute to some of the situations that are going on at work.
Fiorella, you mentioned criticism. Constructive criticism is a gift. It's a gift.
Feedback's a gift.
Feedback is a gift. And I think Sheryl Sandberg quoted that. Feedback is a gift. So when you have feedback, you should not take it personally, but look at it. What is it trying to teach me? What is it trying to show me? So that's the way I would take constructive feedback as well.
Be really open to it.
Yes, be open to it.
So Josie,
And thankful.
sorry.
Be thankful for it.
Yes.
It is so hard to get real feedback, to get honest, timely, genuine feedback. This is why conversations are, you know, fraught with conflict, and we avoid telling people at work, you know, how they're really performing. At least I don't, but managers that I coach do, because they're so afraid of the reaction.
Yeah.
Right? Because people react instead of respond. There's a huge difference. But the thing is, self-awareness comes from me knowing me, and then me knowing what you think of me. And so this is my identity, what I think of me. But my reputation and the key to success is what does everybody else think of me? And I need to close the gap between my intent and my behavior that is experienced by other people. Does it make sense?
Yes.
So unless I get feedback from you, unless I pay attention, you know, to facial expressions, moods in the room, and, you know, how people engage with me, I'm never going to grow. I'm always going to be biased by my own opinion of me.
Yeah. It goes back to that self-awareness piece.
Self-awareness,
we were
feedback,
talking about,
and we can get it different ways. Sometimes people get feedback by not getting the promotion they always wanted, by not keeping their job. Sorry, I mean, that's true.
Yes.
And people don't want to have those tough conversations they'd rather just let someone go or shove them off to the side. To me, that is just such a tragedy.
Yeah, and those are awful moments, but I will say when one door closes and another one opens, like that classic phrase, but sometimes when things that you're going for don't work out, it's because there's something else better out there for you. And I really, really believe in that, but it's really hard sometimes when you're really counting on that one thing that you've been, you know, striving after or working towards. But
And what EI skill is that? Optimism.
Optimism.
It's optimism combined with resilience, which is adaptability and flexibility.
So it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. And people don't even know. They don't even connect the dots. That's why we want to connect it for them.
Right. And then to be more aware and then use them better, right?
Effective. And
grow
use them.
Yeah.
How about use them?
Yeah.
Instead of continuing to do things that are hurting your success and you're shooting yourself in the foot, spend more time doing these things, and then you'll have less time for the other stuff.
Yeah.
See?
There we go. Solving all the problems. Josie, over to you. How about you at work? How do you see EI come into play?
EI is really important. When you work in large teams, 20 or more, you know, there's a lot of moving parts. You have 20 different personalities with 20 different people with various levels of emotional intelligence.
Yep.
On top of that, you have introverts, extroverts, and you have to deal with all of that. And a team can be difficult, or can come together in a really, really nice way where you develop, really great goals, and you're working together and everything is in sync. But there's also times where emotional intelligence is low, and so you're going to have to deal with that as well. And those, in large groups, that's what happens.
How do you identify when someone is having a low EI kind of day or moment? Like, what are you seeing?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. Like, I'm
How many signs
defensive
you want?
behavior might be in EI, and not that you feel like it all the time, you just might be having a bad day. But anyways.
I think often the person with low EI is the center of conflict, where the conflict begins.
Oh, okay.
So often that person is where it starts. They'll blame others for the issues. That's another way. So those are the two main things that I would see.
What about you, Jess? What have you seen?
I completely agree with you. Things involving their self-awareness. So if they're not able to work in a team environment and they can't collaborate with their team, that's a bit of a red flag. Like you said, managers who blame their team for a mistake or something gone wrong, or somebody who just is constantly complaining. I agree with you. It's a source of conflict. People with low EI. So I think that's a good point.
And it's not easy to work in teams. Put that out there. It's not easy to work in teams.
It's not easy. No, we all come with our home lives, our own issues. Perhaps there's so many serious things going on in your life, and you have to present yourself in a professional way. So sometimes just knowing that about people and maybe sharing a little bit. Empathy is a big part of social intelligence. So if you share a little bit more about it, then it tends to help the situation. And your manager or your coworkers will understand better and show more emotional intelligence that way as well.
So we've got about a minute left. If each of you have a piece of advice that you'd like to give our viewers on how you use emotional intelligence effectively, or just a suggestion of something you've seen work really well at work.
Fiorella touched on this, but I just don't be afraid to identify your emotions. It's okay to say, when you did this, I feel like this, because it's easy to make assumptions, and those assumptions might not be correct. So just don't be afraid to just say how you feel.
Yep. No, honesty, communication.
Fiorella's tips, there's some great tips that she shared with us before the show. One of them that resonated with me was self-awareness and signature strengths. Be aware of what those are. When you're having a moment, think about those. Good moments that have given you confidence so that you have good emotional intelligence. Successful intelligence includes emotional intelligence, so think about it that way.
Interesting. And to jump on Jess's point too, this is a Brené Brown thing, but consider the story that you're telling yourself might not be the actual truth of what's happening. Yeah. So having that upfront conversation with someone, you'll get to the result. Over to you, Fiorella. Any last minute takeaways, and where can we go for more?
Build your self-confidence.
Build your self-confidence.
And ground it in reality and real achievements, and celebrate all the things you get done, small or big, because you're going to have to rely on those for your own resilience and self-confidence. And you can also consider taking the course at the Groot Business School at McMaster, Emotional Intelligence course, and reading the books that go with it.
Great. Thank you so much for being here, ladies. That was great.
Thank you. Thank you.